All right. So, for every line or space on the staff, it represents a white key on the keyboard. What that means is that there is basically an alternating cycle going on between the line and the space of the music staff, as well as with the keys. So, say for example, where this red note starts, or where this cycle that they're showing you begins, is on an E, the first line at the bottom, right? Line one. And so that is right here, that lights up first, and it's on a line. Well, the very next key to that, this F, is this space, okay? And then
Mhm.
after that, you have a G. So it just goes line, space, line, space, line, space, line, space, etc. Now, clefs assign individual notes to certain lines or spaces. Keep that in mind. That's very important. You have a treble clef and a bass clef. There's a different form of clefs that exists. We have the tenor clef, which has the 8 at the bottom. We utilize that for lower voices, like tenors. They sing usually an octave lower. And then we also have an alto clef, but those clefs we're not going to review today. So the most commonly known is the treble clef and the bass clef, and we use them quite often as singers. So first we'll discuss the treble clef. So it's also called the G clef, okay? And you'll note that as you go up the scale, the notes go up in a sequential order, in a sequence. And notice how there's a red line going through this part of the treble clef. Notice that?
Yeah.
So the treble clef, its design significantly is created so that we can identify where G is. Notice how the G line goes right where this part of the treble clef circles, okay? So that's where you see that red dot, and any note that's on that line will be G. So if it were to come back down, if there were a note that were placed on that line again, it would be G, no matter what. Um, so we say that clefs have more than one name. And in this case, like I stated before, this is the treble clef, also known as the G clef. Okay, so notice how the notes keep ascending and they go in an order. So right at G, what we do then is start over after G back to A, and it goes up A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay. So what we have to do is think about the order of those notes, and there's 7 notes and they repeat. And once you hit that octave or that eighth note from G to G, you start over again. So in understanding how the sequence works, we have to remember that we can then also think backwards. Instead of thinking G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, we can think G, F, E, D, C, B, A. You see
Mhm.
where we're going with that? And that's,
And um, so these lines, the ones that are pointing that up and down on the notes,
yes, those are the stems.
yeah, they'll get the stems. So when it's pointing down, that means it's always um up or higher,
I see what
or
you mean. Yes, so there is a rule in music theory that we follow where as we ascend up the scale, once we hit B, the B line in the middle of the treble clef, in this case, it would be line D in the bass clef. But in the treble clef, once we hit that middle line, we turn the stem down as the notes ascend upward. There are other little I guess there are other little intricate reasons as to why some composers do or do not do that in their writing. In a lot of cases, when I do notice that the stem is still up, it's usually because they are doing I guess what I would call more of a layered way of composing their music, which requires maybe a stream of notes to continue, and they can't pull them all this way or that way, so they keep them more in a uniform design. So you may still see in some music where the note the note stems are still up, but in most cases, if when we're just doing simple things like this, the stem will be down. So as we are doing practices like this, working on music theory, you will not point the stem up once you hit line B. Once you hit line B, the stem must stay down and the head of the note will be at the top. So the little round part of the note, that's what we call the head of the note. And then the line that you're talking about is the stem.
Got it.
Okay, great question. So now it says, uh-oh, we just ran out of room for the place note, for the place notes. So what happens now? Well, you have to remember that music is infinite, just like frequency is infinite. So it just keeps going. So we implement something that's called a ledger line. Did you notice that little line that just dropped out of the sky out of nowhere?
Yeah.
Okay. So think of it this way. Even though you saw the staff like you did before, there's literally an infinite amount of lines still going above as well as below the staff. So, but we bring it present by calling it a ledger line so that you don't have all these lines going all over the place. It just makes the music a lot easier to read and notate. So then we just continue. So once G is over, you keep going on up and A is next. Now, notice how this time the G appears in a space while this one down here was on a line, and the A here above that is on a space, and the one on that legend line is an A this time. That A is on a line. Okay. Now let's discuss the bass clef. Now, the bass clef is also called the F clef. Notice how it's identified by these colons. The line that goes across is going straight through the little bulb at the left of the bass clef, and in between the two colons, or at least what I call them, colon dots, okay? And so that tells us that this is the F clef as well as the bass clef, and that note, anything that lands on that line is the F note. Okay. And here's the pitch. All right. So now by knowing that that's F, we can go ahead and fill out the remaining notes on the staff. And here you can see how it ascends F, G, A, and right above this staff would be the treble clef staff, the one that we did earlier. So the notes would just continue in order, and then going down, it would do the same thing, just going in order. And this is what I was talking about. So how the lines keep going on forever. This is actually what the staff looks like before we took middle C and took its line out and only used the ledger line when you read music. Music used to actually be constructed on a staff like this long time ago. There's like some if I'm not mistaken, I think it's like Gregorian chants, style, England style type music, where people would sing with all the notes on there, and they wouldn't look like how they look now. They look a little different. They had a similar system, but a little different. All right, so this is what we call the grand staff, okay? So notice how when I clicked to the next part, it eliminated the middle line, which is what we call the middle C, and we ended up with two regular staffs. So this to us is what we call a grand staff. Okay, so by adding the treble clef on the top staff and the bass clef to the bottom staff, we can see the relationship between the two staves or staffs. And then you'll notice how when I pop that line back in there on the ledger line back in there, middle C, that's where you're presented with the middle of the actual grand staff, which is middle C. Okay. And this C is commonly called middle C since it corresponds to the middle of the line on the grand staff. All
So
right.
is it okay? So this is also where I keep getting confused because I've been looking, so I've been reading like my piano book and stuff, and um, they had me play a few songs like "Ode to Joy" and I think it's like "R&B" or something. But um, look at okay, so is middle C always in this spot? Like any, so okay, of course when it's there, it's that's middle C. But let's say C is somewhere. I can't annotate, but
A
somewhere like
different
on the third. Sorry.
a different location, yes.
Yeah.
So are you asking, can we have C's in different places?
Will middle C be in a different place?
No,
No. Okay.
each note is only stationary right where it is. Um, so what it is that in music, we pretty much have a way to categorize frequency and energy of sound. And in this case, what we do is we identify the specific frequency of the pitch middle C, and we call it middle C. And we create a way to identify it visually by putting it in a specific spot, such as this. This is how we know, okay, that's where that pitch is, so we don't lose it and we don't forget
Yeah.
it or call it something else. It's just labeling, is basically what it is. And so middle C will always be middle C, and any other note will always be that note. It can be up an octave, it can be down an octave. But one thing I can do is tell you that there is something called registers, and I'll make sure I make another video on this, but I'm gonna tell you right now, registers, we use registers to help us identify measurement and location of notes within a specific octave. Okay, so for example, middle C is what we would call C4. So that's its
Mhm.
registration number is C4.
Okay,
Now,
and that's kind of really what I'm asking. Like, how do I know where C5 or C3 is on when it's actually on the staff? Because like when you label it, it looks or it seems like when it was labeled, I was playing like "Ode to Joy" like just like I was a badass. I'm like, okay, but when they got rid of the labels and I was trying to just sight read, it got more and more difficult because I'm like, okay, if middle C is here, how do I know which octave I'm supposed to play a C that's like on the third or wherever another C would land, like you said, another location.
right, and in this case,
Right.
I say third, so like it would be the third space of the treble clef in this case. So like the other C would be right above, but it would be eight notes up. So like if you are you able to see my mouse, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So like if this is C, right? This is middle C, this is C4. So then you count up and you include that note in your counting. It's not like in math where we count on, you know how like we count on in math, we'll say what's 1 plus 7, and we don't count the one, but we count 2, 3, 4,
Yeah.
6, 7. So in well, I should say 7, 8. But anywho, my mind was going for a second. But what you've got to do is consider that in music we don't do what's called counting on, we include that first note as one. So
Hmm.
that first step would be C, so that's 1, and then the D is 2, E is 3, F is 4, G is 5, A is 6, B is 7, C is 8. That's the octave 8. Octave, okay? So this would be C5. The C above that would be C6. And the C above that would be C7. So then you can only imagine if I go backwards, then the C right here in middle C is C4. Then the C that's down here in the bass clef on that stem would
Oh,
be C what?
C3.
Right. And then you got C2, etc. That's
So
how
they
that.
and so C2 and C1 and I think it was C5 and C6. or C6, C7, those will always fall off of the staff?
Yeah, so once you hit C5, there's no other C's that would show on the actual staff like this, but it will be presented or can be
On the
presented
ledger.
ledger line.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
That was just one of the main confusions that I was having. Like as I was playing, I'm like, okay, I my hands are right here on middle C, and the C below the left hand. Uh, but where do I like? I don't know. But I think that just cleared my whole confusion on that topic.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah, because um it's very important to understand these little intricate, details. A lot of people, like I remember when I first started learning um music theory, people would spit information out to me and then I was like, "Oh, okay, this is great to know, but what do I do with it or how can I use it? How can I recreate with it?" And because I didn't know all the other little intricate details, I was stuck with just knowing something that somebody repeated to me, and then I had to keep doing my own research and study in order to figure out, oh, I see how all of these little pieces connect. And at some point, you and I will go over understanding the circle of fifths. I created a circle of fifths sheet as well that you can use later on, but it's basically, part of the system of music so you can understand where the keys are and how the scales work and different things like that. Oh, but by the way, did that answer your question? Well,
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
did.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So that's pretty much, the music staff, and how we use it and operate from the basics of the foundation of it. Um, so let me move us. Let me move my screen. Okay. Let me move us over here to notation duration. By the way, I wanted to bring to your attention that I'm using musictheory.net. Musictheory.net is actually a wonderful free online music theory website. I've been using this since I was in high school. So I'll kind of give you an idea of how long it's been around. It's been around longer than that though.
Yeah.
But it is phenomenal and it's packed full of so much knowledge that pretty much anyone of any area in music could utilize. And so with y'all being, my students, I utilize this as a resource to you guys because they have so many free tutorials in here, but they also have other products that they do sell that I find very useful as well. But
Mhm.
time because it is very much worth the experience of using, um especially for reviews or if you ever get into a music program like in a college or and you're wanting to freshen up on some things is very helpful for that. All
Got it.
right.
Okay, I'm definitely gonna use that. Okay.
Yeah,
Because I was gonna add, I looked at the URL and I was like, I wonder is that free or not? But I was gonna wait to the end to ask. So yeah, definitely I'm gonna
yeah, it
because
is
I
a
do
free online resource.
because like the book, okay, like the piano book that I have, and I made some printouts um of like the scales and stuff. But I need something that I can actually like study like a class. Like I'm and that's what I need right there, that website.
Yes. Yeah, they have some great resources on here to help you refresh yourself on things and study. And everything about it I love. There's even like activities that you can do, like little exercises and different things like note identification, key signature identification, interval identification. Um that I would even recommend. They have where you can even adjust them in certain ways just to fit, certain specific things that you need to study on each of those topics.
Mm,
All right. So let's tap into note duration. So I know you and I have done like some clapping exercises in your voice lesson,
mm,
but this is what I was speaking about right here, where I was like, this type of exercise would really help you. to gain a full understanding as to how to read music. And this is just the foundational aspect. So it says the length of time that a note is played is called note duration. And it's determined by the type of note. So notice how I said the type of note. So like whether it's a whole note, which is this one, a half note, a quarter note, an eighth note, a 16th note. I was wondering if it had one of the others over here too. They have 32nd notes and 64th notes too. It goes on
Mm.
and on. But the most commonly used are these five right here. So um, it says the whole note has the longest note duration in modern music. Okay. The half note has half the duration of the whole note. So let's look at it this way. We have something called a rhythm tree. You may have seen it inside of my studio before, but there's one on here as well. So let's say you have a whole note, right? Well, the two half notes occupy the same amount of time and duration that one whole note holds.
Mhm.
It's like saying this is a whole dollar and you took it and got four quarters and split them into 50 cents each. They still have the same value if you put them together, but when you split them up, they separate. The durations change. So then you would have half the amount of a dollar in each hand versus one whole dollar together. All right. So then you have the quarter note, and that's a fourth of the whole. Um, And so let's look at that inside of the rhythm tree. So now you can kind of start seeing a pattern. You have the whole note at the top, you split that in half. Now you have two half notes, then you split those two in half, and you have two of those on each side, which is four quarter notes.
Mm.
Let me know if you need me to repeat any of this. Is this making a good connection with you?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. So the whole note, you'll hold that for 4 beats.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be like 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right, and you said it right. Keep it connected. 1, 2, 3, 4. Instead of 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mm.
Exactly.
And and then the half note, that'll get 2 beats. So it'll be 1, 2, 4.
Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how we would look at it. Um,
Got
we
it.
wouldn't we wouldn't clap on the two or the four. We would clap only on 1 and 3. 1, 2. Hold that two with it. 3, 4. You see how that works?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
Anything
the
else?
quarter note will just be 1 beat. So 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right. 1, 2, 3, 4. So they're all beat or sounded individually.
Okay.
Right. And it's on the beat in this case. All right. And then you have the eighth note. So the eighth note is one of the smaller durations of the notes. It has a flag. So notice the flag right there.